I will keep you informed, and you know, I'm excited about going forward with this and looking at things like the auditorium, because I think it can benefit both the school and the town, and you know, maybe there is something in there for the Kiva. It's not out of the question.
No, it's not, like I said, and it's just one of those things that, you know, it doesn't, and hopefully doesn't become, it shouldn't become another divisive issue.
I hope not, because I'm in the middle of it.
It's, you know, like I said, it just could be someone from a department who is, maybe understandably, but just, you know, going after his department because today, in just this, our culture is, you know, a me culture, and I want my part for my section, and without looking at the whole. That's, I don't have anything else for you. I don't know if any other member, but I just appreciate the Cable Commission being looking out for money that comes from the residents. And not just, as seems to be a habit in Templeton more often than not, just pissing away money and
well, we've probably been frugal to a fault.
Well, waiting on Will Spring in that school.
Speak to the chairman. He's created a committee to look at all
anything further from the board? No. Thank you very much for coming, Steve. Appreciate your input.
You're welcome.
Again,
thank you. Mr. Ritter? I'll try to get in and talk to you this week.
Steve.
You know where to find me.
Do a good job, Steve.
Back to our agenda. Okay, that is done.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a 5-minute recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand.
Thank you.
We left off
Policies and
policy
procedures.
procedures.
Steve does your job.
Greenhouse. Yeah, the greenhouse.
Never mind.
Showing all the budgets and everything. So everybody can see, not only the business.
We'll give it another cortisone.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sheet sister running the select. Oh yeah, one of my yeah. I know her from.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were supposed to go over on Saturday or Sunday, but we were just
Yeah.
like 2 weeks. That's right, but some Caesars go to Gardner and Worcester. So I just wanted to say hi. Oh yeah, nice meeting you. Nice to meet you.
I learned how by just doing it.
No, I Just kidding, me. Yeah, right.
After school hours, tremendous hours, helping kids out. He's one of the nicest. This is so out of character.
Right, from.
Well, the only thing that's sort of sad is the rest of the year, he has taken off the agenda. At least he was sort of skewed when he wasn't here, but I think that's a poor taste, that's all.
You know, I mean,
Expand his job. Well, I mean, I'm trying, well, not expand the job, but get like what the kids.
No, I never got one.
No, he just wants to,
I never got one.
no, he just wants more equipment to, yeah.
years for years. He was like, so.
All right, well, you're pretty good to look into that question and ask him before taking money out of the selectmen's account. Highway account. Having people working for other departments.
I think it's the work that's being done, not necessarily the person doing it. So if
Oh, no, it's the process of doing it.
right,
And that's what bothered me. When I got rid of my wife, she was questioning that. And they said, no, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. And to me, at face value, it's misappropriation of funds, it seemed.
what do you mean? So like if someone from, let's say, highway is doing work for,
The treasury department.
right, then that's fine because it's the work is being. It doesn't matter who's doing something. I'm not saying that this position exists when it really does. It's just someone helping another department. Yep.
And all right, we'll pick this meeting back up. We had a meeting before the 6:30 p.m. meeting, so Selectmen have been here almost 3.5 hours, so a little party break was needed, I guess.
I'm standing strong.
All right, discuss the Board of Selectmen policies and procedures. These have been brought forward in front of the board a year and a half or so ago. There were a lot of changes made, almost to the point where they were not of any use, and they never kind of fell through the cracks for a variety of reasons. It's been brought back before the board for 2 or 3 meetings now. Our last meeting, there were a few word changes and additions that it was pointed out. They were made, sent to each selectman electronically. I hope I was successful in emailing to them all. The one concern about remote participation, I put in there. The majority of the board present for executive session, and clarify vacancies on boards, particularly other elected boards, and the advisory committee, which open membership is covered under a town bylaw. So that wording clarification I entered into there. I hope it covers the bases. So, if you have a chance to read over, yes.
Oh, well, it was funny that you brought up the, appointed positions and stuff. I was just curious on like even that building committee that they had. For a long time, they ran without anyone from the advisory board. And whose job would that be to get that position filled? I'm just curious.
You mean if it's a committee appointed by the Board of Selectmen, it would be the selectmen's job to fill the vacancy with that board, and it's covered in our policies and procedures. But I know in the past, usually if they have members like the town clerk does for the Board of Registrars, or I think the Conservation Commission in the past is, if they lose a couple of people, you advertise, they're looking for volunteers, and there's openings, and I believe on the town's website there are multiple committees listed that need people, and they've come before the Board of Selectmen and they appoint them. Like someone like partway through, say you're appointed for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and for whatever reason your work changes, your kid changes, whatever, you can't make the committees anymore. They look for volunteers, and then they come before the board to be appointed. But the advisory board vacancy is covered specifically by a town bylaw. And elected boards like Board of Health, they're covered by Mass General Law, the way they have to fill their vacancy.
Well, I know in the Building Studies Committee, they talked about that, the planning board to where town coordinator shall serve in advisory capacity. It was supposed to be part of the building makeup, and I never remember anyone filling that position. I was just curious why that wasn't filled.
Oh, and the original, that's what, 2006?
Yes. I mean,
That was the, yeah, the municipal
stop doing
building
that, or-
committee or whatever, and
Yeah.
then the town coordinator was supposed to sit in past is the past.
I know you guys are investigating it, and I'm just wondering why that was never done, even up to the very end of the committee. It was never filled. Just, if they're supposed to be there as an advisor.
If I can comment,
Yes.
I mean, it's the committee's chairman's responsibility to make sure that all of the positions of his committee are filled. If they're not,
Oh, it's a
then
chairman.
they need to take the appropriate, or get to the appropriate appointing authority to say, hey, we don't have this position
I mean,
filled.
the appointing authority never did it in the first place.
Well, the town
And that's the Board of
coordinator,
Selectmen.
the town
And they
coordinator
didn't
is
follow
in-
the article that was voted at town meeting, so I'm just wondering,
Well,
how did that happen?
I would assume you'd have to ask the Board of Selectmen that was in,
Well, you
seated
guys
at
are the
that
Board of
time.
Selectmen.
not in 2006 or 2009, whatever.
Well, I
the
mean,
book
it's
is.
went all the way to the end of the committee, so there are some people sitting there on the board that
Okay.
were there, so I'm just curious for a comment, that's all.
All right, yes.
I would just say that, like I said, you're asking us to hypothesize about what a board almost a decade ago did, 8 years ago did, and we obviously have no idea why they did what they did. I mean, the minutes of their meetings are public and you're free to look at them, but I don't believe that's really within the scope of this particular item.
Well, that's just, there were some members that are still sitting here, so I was just wondering. if
And that
you
committee
give any
was,
insight into
that
it.
committee was voted out at town meeting, so,
No, it's good. I'm just curious.
yeah.
How it
And
happened.
what, 2011?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I think that that these policies and procedures are a step in the right direction, and that they will definitely help to kind of galvanize what it is we're supposed to do, and to help really establish the relationship between both ourselves, one another, other committees, and then also with the town administrator. So I think that it would be a good idea for us to adopt these policies and procedures as presented this evening.
Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I will second it.
All right, a motion made and seconded on the policies and procedures for the town of Templeton Board of Selectmen. Did the needed suggested changes or additions meet?
Good.
Fine, please.
Good too.
All right. All right, a motion made and seconded. Action on the motion. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes.
Mr. Chairman, just as a comment, I'd like to see that. I think all the citizens should see that on the town website. That would probably help them out understand what you just passed.
There you go.
Suggestion noted.
It's like we didn't even want to.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to discuss regionalization, consolidation of services or offices. I placed that on the agenda for a couple of reasons. One, budgetary. Just as a general thing, I think that we should be looking at, not only outside of errors made in the budget, shortages, et cetera, et cetera. It's just something that I think is needed. There's one item in particular that I think deserves to be revisited. In that little publication that comes to all selectmen called The Beacon, There's things in there such as ads for employment, town administrators, legal services, etc. It's also an outline, a concise little information booklet on the goings-on of what, like Massachusetts Municipal Association does, what's on Beacon Hill's agenda, the hot items. December's, I believe, it talks, there's an article in there about funding and overrides, and how many overrides in 2013. Of the 14 overrides, 10 are for concerned education, 4 were passed for regional school districts. Nobody in Templeton, or I would not think anyone in Templeton, would need a reminder or much talk on that issue. Also noted in that article was in the fall months of September, October, November, there were 7 communities that had override questions put before the taxpayers. Only one passed, that was the town of Templeton. My personal feeling is an additional override is needed and justified this spring. As I've stated many times in the past, I believe a big disservice has been done to the residents of Templeton for overrides, small, perhaps maybe $250,000, $300,000, at least every other year, at least pursued or offered for town expenses, for the increases that happens that we have little control over. The 2 biggest is health insurance and the pension funds of retired employees. The little control that you could have over that is the fewer employees that you have, the smaller that forever bill will be. And one way to perhaps cut down on that is to regionalize or consolidate positions or offices. In other words, one office perhaps handling multiple things. And one way to perhaps do that is have to change how you pay for or fund positions. It's rather than each department having their own administrative expense account or fund, is to have just one administrative salary expense for the town in general. That gets you out of the confines. I do see your hand, and I will call on you when we have a motion and we open it for discussion. If you move people around to fill in for vacations or other things, if everyone is paid out of a salary account, you run the risk of you move them over to here and you're like paying them twice. It's still nuances. So I believe that is certainly worth investigating. With the shortfalls and the override for town services, one particular thing is the feasibility study for developing regional dispatch service between Gardner, Templeton, and Phillipston. And since this report was done, which was paid for through a grant, and the city of Gardner did the work and presented it to the town of Templeton, and contained in the pages is the information there was a potential savings of $90,000 to the town of Templeton by regionalizing dispatch services. Yes, there are some details in there. We would have to come up with an alternative way or plan during working hours, especially if someone reports, is pothole this or that, and the highway department or this or that, because it would strictly be fire and police dispatch if we regionalize is what I believe is the end result. I unofficially spoke with folks in Gardner mayor and the chief of police, whom we originally met with, and I broached this subject. And again, they presented this report and brought it to Templeton, and last year, sometime I believe in the spring, it ended up getting voted. They don't want to accept it, don't want to pursue it at the last minute, after this report was done. Gardner, despite that, I've been told by a few officials, city council, police chief, and the mayor, that they would be open to talking and looking at going in this direction again. And again, and I believe Hubbardston has also expressed interest in jumping on that. It's a potential savings of $90,000 to Templeton. Regionalization is being encouraged by the DOR. It's in that famous financial review of Templeton. It was a suggestion that you regionalize. The state is pushing it. There is grant money, as evidenced by this report, that to discuss and pursue going regional. And I thought it was worth getting a conversation started and getting it out in the public realm, and the board and others at least talking it, and maybe coming up with a way to further pursue this. We have an animal control agreement with Gardner. Perhaps, you know, we have a regional kind of thing with communities with health for, you know, major emergencies. There is a board of health agent, regional thing. I believe it's the Neshoba. Whether we could hook onto that if we so decided, or regionalize with just, you know, the city of Gardner, because that's the name that's here, or another community, again, to take some of the burden off Templeton taxpayers. And another thing that's on here down the thing, but certainly ties in with this, is a per diem or pay as you go, like we do with the plumbing and gas and the wiring inspector, electrical inspector. We set aside X amount of dollars. I think it's $10,000 per. And so when you need an inspector, you call them up and they bill out of that fund, rather than having a full-time employee where you pay, you know, not only vacation and sick days, but you have to provide health insurance and that forever bill pension. And that's the one control that we have, sort of, over those things. Contracting out, fewer employees full-time, the less pensions that you, and that they don't go away. And when that person retires, they get replaced, and you're continuing down that road of forever bills, and it just gets larger and larger. It's there's another article in the Beacon. It's a big issue again, and there's a few communities who are starting to put some money aside to cover that, but it's the bill gets so big, and the money that they can put away is so small that it's. I think it's estimated that they will only have 1 to 2% of their due bill to fund, which is another issue in entirety. We just got good news from Worcester County Retirement that in 2015, our commitment, part of our bill is going to increase by $85,000. So it was 485 or 5 something.
It's 5.
80, 42?
855 540 something. It's going over 600.
It's going to go another 85,000. There are a couple of things that we can do that will maybe mitigate that a little bit, but that's just an example of it's not going down, it's just going to go up. So we need to do something, we need to address it sooner rather than later. So I put this on the agenda just to bring the subject up and to get it going, maybe get thoughts of the board. Maybe we can plan to move this down the road on future agendas and gather information. Division of Local Services, DOR, they have pamphlets, and they have information on agreements and how you go about it and the things to consider. And I think in Templeton's case, it's something that we need to do rather than think about. Any comments from the board members? Julie?
Well, I think as a beginning point, all members should get a copy of that report on dispatch that was paid for by, Gardner got the grant, and they looked at regionalizing dispatch. One of the drawbacks, I think, one of the major drawbacks was we get a sizable amount of money from that dispatch grant,
911.
the 911 grant. So that would no longer be coming into Templeton, and I know that it's been used in other cases to fund other things besides dispatch. So those are the kind of ramifications we need to look at. I'm not saying that it's not worth pursuing. The will of the board at that point in time was to vote no and dismissed it. They also dismissed the DOR report, so, that only took 3 years. But we need to do business differently. We just can't keep on doing the same thing over and over again, and there's only so much that we can cut. When you look at next year, the amount of money we're gonna raise in 2.5% is $219,000. Okay, and then you get a bill for $86,000 for your retirement. That's just the retirement. It doesn't include fuel, anything else. Okay, any other demand from any other department, any other unexpected bill. Okay, is going to get that $219,000 does not go very far. So I think we're going to have to look at it, and we are going to have to do something to address the structural deficit that we have. That's been built in to our budgets by our over-reliance on free cash. So,
I agree. We have to look at things to do, because even if we use it even if we had $1 million in free cash and used it all to balance our budget this year, it's just kicking the can 6 months down the road, because if we ever want to get out of a situation where we have to, as a matter of reflex, use free cash and stabilization to balance our budget, we have to look at things such as regionalization and consolidation of services and offices, because it is a way that we can maintain services to our residents without having to increase taxes. I know, and it's not just Templeton that's looking to do this, kind of like, we're the little sad kid running around town looking for people to help us. A lot of other, I was in Hubbardston on a private matter and happened to, before my meeting, be talking with the town administrator there, and she had said that anything that, if there was anything that she could do, or that Hubbardston could do regarding regionalization, even if it's just a little thing that can save each town, 15, 20 grand, those kind of little agreements add up when you have several of them. So I think that we seriously need to look at structural changes to the way that we do things in order to survive.
I fully agree. We have to do some sort of restructuring. We just can't keep going the way we are.
And again, I wasn't looking for any particular action. It's just bring this forth to the public, and perhaps some board members, we start to look at this. Yes.
So, to that end, that's one of the reasons that the advisory board came last week and made the recommendation for joining 2 positions in town. We were also looking at other positions, and you talked about the Board of Health. We were looking at that from a cost savings estimate also, in the fact that Neshoba Regional, when you look at the communities that have gotten into that and look at our budget, you're probably saving somewhere around $40,000 if we were to go to something like that, and still have a person in that office full-time. With that being said also, one of the things I just want to remind the selectmen is, the last 2 years we have come as recommendations to take and reinstitute the insurance board. That hasn't happened. Last year, when I happened to be in one of the offices, a gentleman came in and said that, and he didn't know what our insurance is. He says, I'm sure that I could come in and save at least $80,000. So that's really something that really we need to institute, because that process for insurance board would take a while to do, because you have to look at what you have before you can even go out to bid. We've done a little bit of that, So, I mean, and the advisory board will end up, we're gathering information, like I said, on a board of health, to take and help make those decisions, because it's taken, and I know this is difficult for a board that you work all day. It's taken me 2 to 3 days to take and end up looking at about 30 communities to see what they do for those different departments that we're looking at, so we can come back to recommendations. I mean, this is not easy, and it's a slow process. That's why we felt that it was in the best interest of the community to look at it from a financial aspect, make those recommendations, give you the data, and you make the final decision as to how we're gonna go. So that being said, I totally agree that we need to do that, and we're looking at not only the ones that we have already got to you, but we are looking at future meetings at the advisory board to provide some additional information in the future.
Thank you. Yes.
Have you guys set up an OPEB trust yet?
No.
All right, have you decided where, actually, I was surprised that it wasn't even on the agenda tonight about the $505,000 from FY13 that we're still down, I guess, or haven't been addressed as far as how it's gonna come with our budget. Is that just, and my other question is that just FY13's budget, or are you short that for FY14 also?
The 505,000, that's for the F14 budget only.
That's the FY14,
Yes.
okay.
And it's a slow process, but one of the options that were given to us was you can use free cash, you can just cut the budget, you could go for an override, or you can do a combination of any three. And we will not know what the free cash is until 13 is closed and the state certifies it.
And when do you think that will be?
Hoping right now by the end of the month. I was hoping to have it done sooner, but some of the things that have to get done are just taking time.
Now, as far as the OPEB trust, have you looked into setting it up for these retirement issues?
This board, no. I know some places have, and again, it helps a little, but it doesn't cover, it's not the full stopgap that you need, because it's, they're forever bills that just keep going.
Well, the OPEB trust actually was an accounting standard by the state that was actually should have been addressed a number of years ago. Just some towns are just now getting to the point where they're funding it.
Right. That was with the health care reform thing, I think 3 years ago. 4 years ago. But no, that's $505,000 shortage is just for fiscal.
It's just for
14. It's not-
FY14.
not-
Even, I mean FY14, even though 13's not done.
But that's not over. Yes. Because, the 14 budget was created, like this May, the 15 budget will be created, because fiscal year 15 starts July 1st.
Right, and whereas FY13 is not complete yet, that's where we didn't know that if the shortfall came from FY13, and then you're gonna be short that again on FY14, that's what my question is.
Oh, no, it's just 14, nothing to do with 13. We can't really, one of the options that we have is to use free cash to shore up that shortage, and we can't, that's not an option we have, because we can't come to town meeting and say, we're gonna use free cash, when they say, well, how much? Well, we don't know. Not much point in putting that in front of you if we don't have a number. So until we have that number, unfortunately, it just takes time.
Right, so you have a hiring freeze in town, but you can still hire a town administrator or coordinator. I know you're looking into an interim, but I know you're gonna have to have some type of money, for that position.
That is the leftover salary account that was already appropriated with Mr. Ritter leaving. Whatever is left in there will be divided up, and that's where the dollar amount will come from to pay an interim through this fiscal year. And it's just something that we desperately need. That office, the day-to-day admin stuff, has to be done.
And I know that you said the town was looking into getting funding for like the stormwater and go in with a couple towns to get that done. And they're gonna get some grant money for that, because I know we haven't done anything, I don't think, on the stormwater end of it.
Yeah, last I recall, we took money from out of the stormwater account to fix something, to cover some shortage, a year and a half or so ago, maybe, because, and I forget exactly. It's something that there was something to put off in that stormwater study
I don't think
agreement or
they've done
something.
anything with it.
Where we wouldn't get fined or something. But I know there was some money, and it had been regularly transferred out of the stormwater account. It's kind of like playing, you know, I'll take it out of here to cover here,
I
and then.
still don't know what's in the betterment account.
You know.
Are we gonna get a number there?
Mr.
No, my
Chairman,
question
could we
is,
get back
that's-
to
I heard
the
of-
agenda?
You possibly getting a grant and going in with some towns?
It's, well, we'll have to
That one of the
explore
things that
it.
were on the table? I
It's
thought I was
regionalization.
watching a selectmen's meeting, but my only question is, how much control do you lose when you're going with 3 or 4 towns? Well, I know you guys, there's been complaints on the board about like the veterans agent and the amount of money the town has to pay for that. Now, when you go into these regional agreements and things of that nature, and you're gonna run into the same
That's
issues.
That's why it takes time, and the DOR puts out those information as how to go about it and all the things to look at, the considerations.
I mean, you get grants in the beginning and it sounds all great, but they're not gonna give you grants for the end of time. Obviously, once it's set up, the towns.
But it's just something that I thought the board and town should consider. All right, and again, that was just a topic for discussion, no votes or action expected or required. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the Gardner Animal Control Agreement. And in a letter dated December 16th, addressed to Jeff Ritter, intermunicipal animal control agreement, please find enclosed an invoice for the town of Templeton's fiscal year 2014 cost. Excuse me, please. We have quiet back there. Costs under the intermunicipal animal control agreement. If you have any financial questions or would like additional information, please contact my office or the mayor. Thank you for your attention. Calvin D. Brooks, City Auditor.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like a brief, I'd be happy to inform.
Yes, please.
We had a one-year animal control regionalization agreement with the city of Gardner and the town of Hubbardston. That agreement expired June 30th, 2013 for fiscal 13. The city of Gardner, in their great benevolence, has provided free service to the town of Templeton for going on, well, 6.5 months now. They've awoken to the fact that they have not invoiced us, and this cover letter, in fact, provides invoicing for fiscal 14 costs. There is no intermunicipal animal control agreement in place today because it was a one-year agreement. I would also note for the record, they still make use of a vehicle titled to the town of Templeton, a truck, a specially equipped animal control truck that we bought and paid cash for outright 2 years ago, and maybe it was 3 years, but I arbitrarily assign a value to that used vehicle today of about $18,000. They're receiving free use of a town of Templeton vehicle. I would say the city of Gardner has some explaining to do. I would say you politely write back and tell the mayor, gee, we'd like to pay you, but we don't have an agreement. And we have all the cards, we're in the negotiating seat. Maybe you want to pay them. I mean, I don't think we should ignore them. And the rate here is just a slight increase. There's, you know, good news to report that the 26,385 for the year is an assessment that's up only just a smidge over last year's legally binding agreement, about a $1,000 increase. If I had an agreement in place, I would have just paid the bill.
The conversation with the mayor, he was under the assumption that it was a 3-year agreement that was signed, which may explain why there was no action on that. So perhaps the board would direct Jeff to
Make a recommendation.
contact the mayor and
Get the ball rolling.
Extend the agreement. I haven't even called Hubbardson. I'm sure they feel the same way that we do, and are in essentially the same boat. And in good faith, Gardner's delivered the service. There's no question about that. I was just holding this trump card that, gee, we didn't negotiate the truck into the agreement last year. It's about time we did. So. I can make the call. Is that agreeable?
I thought it was, when I talked to him, I had thought it was longer than 1 year, but not the case.
But we checked. It's definitely 1 year and it expired. Definitely.
So that's just, well, that's kind of on this board too, because it kind of fell through last spring. So it was June 30th when it expired, so.
Yeah.
And I believe, although it was discussed at a city council meeting, I think that was, the mayor had the authority to sign off on that, I believe. This city council just kind of did it as a cursory thing, like a public information thing, for the residents of Gardner. So, yeah, that would make that call and inquire on that.
Sure. Start the ball rolling.
Next item on the agenda is discuss.
Mr. Chairman, you have 2 people that are waiting for you on this item, myself and her.
We're not, there's no motion or anything.
No, I'm just doing it as a reminder that we only budgeted 25, and you just talked about 26. I just wanted to kind of let you know that.
All right.
If you go into contract negotiations, that's very important.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was wondering if you might want to include, I know it'll cost a little more, but you are also you have the rent for the Ahimsa Haven, but you might consider including the animal inspector, since you're going to be negotiating the contract anyway. It's just a
That is
thought.
an option if the Agricultural Commission because I think they agreed they would do it for a $500 stipend. But I'll check the minutes. Thank you. All right, discuss town credit card account. And this is an email from Tara Cash, American Express corporate card. Was this unsolicited
I'll
email?
let Holly brief this, because it's directly on her. But I will, before you begin, you may recall that about a year and a half ago, the board had a discussion on this topic and notified me to do some research and come back and report to you. And I did some research and had American Express corporate, they're the only ones who deal with municipal account credit cards. This is a special program. That's why it's not MasterCard, not Visa, because Amex runs a public sector muni card. They understand that you can't collect taxes. They understand our cash flow situation, slow pay, etc. So I did some research and had this issue prepared to brief the board 10 months ago. Took it to the town treasurer, who said he was just too busy and unable to address it at that time. So it went on the bottom of the pile until my planned departure from the town forces that right to the top of the stack. Take it away, Holly.
Well, Jeff had done the legwork, so I contacted the company and talked to this Tara, and she emailed me. Basically, there's no, it's American Express. You pay every month. There's no interest. There's no membership fee or anything. You actually earn membership rewards, which it says in that email, perks and stuff. Yeah, I think it's points towards getting things that you could get for the town. But basically, there's things that we can only pay for online. You have to have a credit card for some things. The email situation is one of them. And
they're not aware of that, so you ought to tell them about it.
yeah, right now Jeff's.
My personal credit card is binding the town's domain name and email accounts. And that's coming to an end. And I don't want to see you go dark when I leave.
We don't want the emails to die suddenly. So we have to get a credit card ready to put on there. So our emails don't just die. And so all we have to do, I talked to them.
I think that's all you needed to say.
Well, I got everything ready. All Dan has to do is sign on the dotted line. That's it. I'll do the rest. I'll get it back to them, and then we have it. I got all the financials from Fred.
And the custody of the card would be
With Dan. It's they said the treasurer is usually the officer that's in charge of the credit card.
We keep it locked in the safe. Basically, it's only there as a reference account. It's not for use.
We would probably keep it in Forest Selectman's office, right?
Locked, somewhere locked,
Yes.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'd be on there too, so there'd be 2 people on there for contact.
All right.
I mean, it's definitely a good idea that we have one. I'm curious though if we looked into, or is it available, that we could do just a general procurement, because I know other departments are also using their own personal cards to get things and then, submit for reimbursement.
The concept is, just like your personal finances, just conceptually, I'm saying, just conceptually, if the town decided to pay a lot of its bills through this credit account and write 1 check per month to the credit account, American Express, you simplify and standardize your accounting process for all your regular monthly or quarterly. You pay a lot of Verizon bills, They don't change. They go up and down by pennies every month. As an example, you put all them on this card, the card would pay them. You write 1 check to American Express, it reduces the number of checks you write, it reduces the time of your accounting cycle, and then you get bonus points on the side. Maybe the town Halloween party can be funded by the bonus points on the account. So it's not a panacea, but it's a good business process to look into.
Yeah, because where I work, we've done this, and basically all of our reoccurring monthly bills occur on, you know, whomever's responsible for it, their credit card to make sure that the charges are valid.
Yeah.
And we've reduced our accounts payable costs dramatically.
Well, I know I'm not putting my credit card on the emails.
Yeah. And employees shouldn't be using their card, their personal card, to do town business.
Right.
I mean, that's just not a good practice.
All right.
Do you want a motion?
Yes.
All right. I'll make a motion that we obtain an American Express corporate card for the town of Templeton.
Second?
Can we also ask Jeff to instruct Dan to sign it? Is that necessary?
Perhaps.
With the treasurer to sign? How's that?
I'll amend my second to reflect. That's
And just sign the form and Holly will do the rest. Okay. Motion made and seconded. We're set with that. Yeah, it's necessary if we, an email is necessary in today's world. It just streamlines everything.
There are certain things you buy now with the internet being a very powerful market where they will not accept a paper check, period. So you can use PayPal. Well, you gotta have a credit account for PayPal. Or you can just have the credit account, give them a credit number. Or you can use a debit number. You just can't write them a check. They will not take a check. Network Solutions, who's our network services provider, is one of the big internet core service providers, and they make their money by providing services electronically. They don't do paper, period. There is no person to open the mail and deposit the check. They won't take it. So if you want to do business with them, you do it electronically.
All right. On the motion made, seconded. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right, okay, permission's out of the way. Discuss per diem positions. Again, this was the thing that was informational, we kind of already, or I kind of already talked about it. Perhaps maybe positions, the building inspector comes to mind instantly, that we would pay only when we use them. I believe a few years ago, I believe I even actually spoke to this on town meeting floor. We had a conservation agent who worked, it was paid like when he worked, and he was as little as 8 to 10 hours a month. I mean, it was minimal. And there are some things that I think vernal pools were a big thing in town. That little puddles, there could be salamander or something in there. I believe you have to be a certified botanist to deal with them and things. So, and then the town had a 20-hour-a-week conservation agent, and that benefits, that adds to the forever bills. And in 2012, that position was no longer funded. Templeton did, and nothing ceased to, the wheels didn't stop. Stuff is still getting built. But again, that's what I think, it's one of those things that we could set aside a certain amount of money for, and when projects come up that you actually need a building inspector for, you call them, you pay the bill, and they go away. We may actually spend a little more upfront to pay for that service, but on the backside, we get away from those forever bills. We don't pay, aside vacation and sick time, we don't pay health insurance, and we don't pay his retirement forever. And you budget for, if you budget for retirement and you put $500,000 in your budget, and then the following year, the next year, well, Now you need another $85,000, now you have to budget for $585. Maybe in a year or two, you get another notice, oh, we need another $50,000 or $100,000. Now before you know it, you're up to $1 million a year for pension. So the way you can get a little control of that is fewer employees and more consolidation, regional and a per diem, where you just pay for the service when you need it. And again, the upfront cost may be a little more, but on the backside, you save tremendous amount of money. And that's another thing I think that deserves looking into for some positions. There was a request by one member of the board that we should, kick around the special town meeting. When would be a drop dead hardline date, month, where we may want to tentatively shoot for to have one, February or March. And I suppose one possibility would look to see if we have the operating expenses to go as close to see what our options are. Yes.
So I know obviously we don't have the free cash certified. If we had faith